Thank you so much, Kofi. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to today's edition of Joy Business Masterclass. Masterclass is always powered by Joy Business and is brought to us by Goyle. Goyle Good Energy, Goyle Yenara Yedia. Masterclass comes your way every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. and runs all through to 2:15 p.m. here on your superstation Joy 99.7. My name, as always, is Barnafo, and I'm glad to be your host for today's edition of Masterclass. Last week we started a rather interesting conversation on intellectual property, and in that intro we said that words like data, content, copyright, trademark, logo, they always jump out at us in certain conversations of ownership when it comes to content creation. Last week we started a conversation in the area of creatives, and it's one of those spaces that has become very vibrant in Ghana's economy today. We talk about a lot of young people. I think I can sort of dial back to COVID when people were at home and didn't have much to do under lockdown. And so people got creative in all sorts of ways, including creating a lot of content. And that's when TikTok sort of exploded together with other social media platforms here in the country. And so there's a lot of content that is being created, and its usage, we need a bit of education on its usage, what we can use, what we cannot use, what the legal rights are. When you create content, how do you own it? Literally everyone knows where to register a business in this country, but how many people know where to register your rights on the content that you create? In last week's conversation, these are the thoughts that sort of stayed with me. In the week before last, we said that ideas are your property and you must take steps to protect them. But in last week's conversation, we also learned that when it comes to creatives and any other form of intellectual property, number one, you must register them so that you have legal right over the creation or the property that you've created. It's important to have legal rights. And number two, you must also register them so that you can benefit from them legally, and also benefit from them commercially as well. You must also register them to prevent others from using your property without recourse to you, and you must also prevent others from abusing your property once you've created it. Back here in the conversation with us is another very fine brain, Sarah Norkor Anku, a renowned Ghanaian. And for those of us who missed the intro last week, I'll just quickly scroll through her introduction again. Sarah is a prominent intellectual property attorney with an extensive experience in the field. She's a managing partner at Anku IP firm, which spans Ghana and Nigeria, the Gambia, and the USA. She's a senior partner at Anku at Law in Ghana and Nigeria, and she has a diverse educational background, including an LLM in Alternative Dispute Resolution from the University of Ghana and a Master's in Intellectual Property from the Africa University in Zimbabwe. Her expertise, spans copyright, patent, trademark, and industrial design law, due diligence, commercialization of IP, and the enforcement of IPRs. She's a distinguished lecturer of an MPhil Intellectual Property Program at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Here, CV goes on and on and on, and I always say it's one of those CVs that when I grew up, I want to be like her. Back here with me to continue the conversation today on IP is Sarah Norkor Anku. Mrs. Sarah, we're excited to have you.
Thank you very much.
I think this is one of those areas where there isn't much information about.
Yes,
I find that having done this show for a while, the feedback I get from a lot of my listeners is that whenever we talk about areas where there isn't, I wouldn't say there's not much education, but I think there isn't much saturation, because it is not for want of effort. No,
exactly.
It is that there isn't much saturation. People just sort of shy away from it.
Absolutely.
And I think that intellectual property is one of those areas where,
exactly.
So I'm excited we're having this conversation. Hopefully, we have you again next week. But if we're not able to, we'll take all that you've given us. You've obliged us a couple of slides. So for those who want to make some notes, by all means, go to our Facebook, our X page, or our YouTube page and make those notes. At some point in the show, we'll get interactive, and then it can also be a part of that conversation. But otherwise, let's take a listen to everything else that Sarah has to share with us. We continue with the creative industry conversation on IP. I think that will interest a lot of you who are listening today. And then we sort of move into the area of software and coding,
and IP.
Yes, and I think some of my corporates will also be interested in that conversation. You're a GM, you're a CEO, you're listening, you have no idea. When the IT boys bring their budget, you don't understand it. All you keep saying is it's a big budget. Here's a conversation to help you understand it better. So Sarah,
yes,
you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much. Last week we went through the creatives, what can be registered, how to protect them, the steps they had to take. And today we are going to continue with global trends. I'll start with social media and intellectual property. So with social media comes new ways of infringement of intellectual property. Typical examples are what we all do most of the time, uploading videos and music that belongs to others. Some tend to monetize these videos and music, these creative works. Some tend to use sounds that belong to sound recordings that belong to others. You remember when we talked about the rights that govern creatives? We mentioned the copyright, and some of the works eligible for copyright include sound recording, audio visuals, as the videos and the films, the music. So when you upload these music, especially for commercial purposes, to, advertise yourself out there, you should know that you are infringing on somebody else's rights. We also tend to upload other people's pictures that they had taken. Recently, my son called me and says, "Mom, my picture is being used by somebody for advert." I said, "Do the person know who you are?"
Do they know who your mother is?
So you see, he actually took a picture that somebody liked, and the person was using it for his hair advertisement for a particular product without recourse to him.
But let me just chip this one here, though. Is it only when it's used for commercial purposes, or it's when it's used without your express permission?
It is when it's used without your express permission.
Right.
But usually we talk about the commercial aspect, because when it's used and the usage falls within the exemptions, those aspects that you can use and actually get away with it,
Right.
then you'll be safe. But where you use it beyond the accepted types of usage, then you'll find yourself on the other side of the law. Because if you're using it and you say it's fair use, yes, that can work. Some may say educational purposes. There are examples of them that have been decided by the courts, even here in Ghana.
Right.
So in using it, you have to be mindful that you don't cross the line, so it doesn't end up being an infringement of the person's right. Just always have in mind that these created works belong to somebody. Copyright, I mentioned, you don't need to really register to have the rights. It's automatic right. So when you see the content out there and you feel it's free, I have to use it, you should bear in mind that somebody does have copyright over the work that you are trying to use.
Especially music.
Especially music.
Because we're talking about creatives.
Creatives, music, audio visuals, the movies that we watch, we download anyhow, books, all that.
We just download them.
Artwork. We use it for our own advertisements and what have you.
Yeah.
We just go online and then we download photographs and then we use it. I don't know whether I mentioned it last week, but I had a client who actually downloaded he downloaded a photograph of shea butter, a child carrying shea butter, and from outside they came at him. Routers came after him saying that he had infringed on their rights. He had to pay.
Because they own that photograph.
Yes, they had to pay for that.
Imagine the money that would be made
Exactly.
from intellectual property for people who are taking photographs.
Exactly.
And they have no idea.
Exactly.
Because you could sell some of these images to
Exactly.
That's where stock images come from online, isn't it?
Exactly.
For those who design. There's a place you go to and you pick stock images.
Exactly. But some of the stock images, there are a few issues coming up even in the courts where some images find their way in this commercial image banks that the people claim they did not post their images over there. So that could be, I'm yet to see how the courts are going to determine some of these cases.
Right.
But all I'm saying is that just be mindful of what you pick from the internet.
But someone is asking and they're listening and they're saying, listen, I saw this photograph of, let's use a very popular photograph categorization in Ghana. A pretty African Ghanaian young woman wearing kente holding a calabash. We see that everywhere, isn't it? Now the question is, when I find something like that and I want to use it for my media or for an expression, and I'm wondering, where am I going to find this person? If I can't find them, what can I do to make sure that it's like when you scratch somebody's car and they're not there, you leave a note and say, I'm sorry I backed into your car. This is my name, this is my number, please call me. How do you do that when you're using somebody's document and you can't find them anywhere?
That is a
It's tough,
risky
isn't it?
one.
It's
I
tough.
cannot advise on that.
Yeah.
It is a business decision. Just bear in mind that this photograph that you're going to use is somebody else's
So you're gonna have this
copyrighted
conversation
work.
one day. I'm just saying that whoever uses it should remember that they are going to have this
Yes,
conversation
it is
one day.
possible.
Yeah.
Those images that we just pick online and use, we should know that it is possible someone will come back to demand something from us sometime. So
Right.
just make sure that you have a clean house, you do your work well, you obtain the right consents, licenses before you use these works, especially for commercial purposes, especially the advertising agencies. Do not just pick somebody's work and use it for your client. You just create problems for your client.
Right.
Absolutely. So
Interesting
sharing of
conversation.
works and works of arts and so
Yeah.
on and so for free is also an issue that comes up every now and then. Now, there are other trends, other areas that come up with this IP stuff. Ownership. In some jurisdictions, they actually see IP ownership as an asset that may become a spousal property during divorce. So that's how ownership,
That's how seriously they take
it's
it.
serious. It's been taken as even a tangible asset, because when you have tangible assets as between spouses, in the time of divorce, you will be asked to, there will be some
Yes,
decisions
yes.
regarding the sharing of those assets. And similarly, some jurisdictions are treating intellectual property as that kind of ownership.
Wow.
We have a case called Alala Kola versus Palmer. It's a New Zealand case, and it was held that the couple it's a painting actually. The rights in the painting can be shared as spousal property during the divorce proceeding.
But by law, this would be right because, like you're saying, it becomes something you generated out of your intellect.
Yes.
And it has the capacity to generate
Income.
benefit
Yes.
and income. And so it would make sense to say that if it has a right, if it has economic value,
It should be a
then
spousal property.
it should be a subject of conversation.
That's
But it looks very far-fetched though for
It is.
for a
It
society
is.
like Ghana, isn't it?
I actually, when I came across that particular case, I was really surprised. I said, "Wow, intellectual property being spousal property." Well,
It's an interesting conversation. I know that it will be a while before,
yeah.
as a country and as a society, as a people,
Yes.
we finally get on that bandwagon.
Exactly.
But because of globalization and modernization,
It is possible.
once they're talking about it, once Anku at law is here in Ghana as an IP attorney,
Yeah.
at some point, someone is going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, "Oh, you remember that painting I did? Yeah, that painting from
We did
my-
it in the course of our
Yeah,
marriage,
yeah.
so I have rights
Yeah,
in
I want
it.
to go have a certain conversation
Yeah.
with Sarah and say, is there anything I can do about this?
I hope it doesn't get to that.
Wow.
Yes.
But it's interesting to know. I suppose that the point here is that we need to have an awakening
Yeah.
regarding
Absolutely.
our intellectual property. We have for too long treated our intellectual property as intangible, as almost non-existent, as only aesthetic.
That's the problem. Intangible assets are still assets. See, that's because we don't see it, we don't feel it, we don't touch it, we overlook it. But they are assets. And the jurisdictions that have recognized them are making millions out of these intangible. But it looks like we are still focusing on only our tangible. Where you are taught in secondary school, oh, your land, your cars, your human resource, those are your assets. But then we don't look at,
Your bank balances.
yes, you look at the bank balances, the cash, the liquidity and all that, but we don't look at the intellectual property that we have. The solution that you have come up with that is helping your business do better than your competitors, that is intellectual property of value to you.
I'm going to say this here on this program on air, and it's going to generate some traction for you because, of course, we're grateful that you came through. But that very uncomfortable conversation where a man or a woman sits down and says, "I'm going to put together a will
Yes,
for my family in the event that I am no longer alive."
exactly.
And then you're counting your assets and you do not count your intellectual property. So if you're listening to Masterclass now and you know someone who's about to have that conversation, or you're a lawyer, you're advising someone, you could suggest to them that have a chat with. You're the only IP company I know in Ghana, so I'm just going to say have a chat with Sarah and the team and say, listen, give me 30 minutes of your time. Let me tell you everything that I have done in my life, and tell me whether there's something in there that could be an asset that I could sort of put away as part of my inheritance for my family when I'm no longer alive.
Absolutely.
And you'll be surprised to find that there may be 1 or 2 or 3 things in there.
Exactly.
Some photograph somewhere, something from some, I don't know what the definition will be, but there could be something in there that could be beneficial as an addition to your inheritance.
Especially with the copyrighted works. Because with copyright, as an individual, you enjoy the rights throughout your life, and when you are dead and gone for 70 years after your death. So your estate is supposed to benefit throughout for the 70 years. When I used to work with the Registrar General's Department, and I remember there was a case, an estate case, that one of these artists, and there was a lot that was coming in from the assets, the musical works of that particular asset for the estate. So,
and because they knew what to do.
Of course.
They were realizing this.
The administrator knew what it was. Because the administrator is still the registrar of trademarks, the registrar of industrial properties. So she knows. You know,
I'm looking at you and I'm smiling because somehow I'm hearing 2 phrases in my mind that let sleeping dogs lie. Let's start from here. But I'm also looking at those who have been abused for too long, and I'm saying, if you have intellectual property and for a very long time you feel that someone has infringed, have a conversation with Sarah and the team. Have a conversation. You never know.
Yes, you could even settle with that person. We don't actually promote litigation, but you could settle, have an agreement with that person. The fact that we don't promote litigation doesn't mean that your rights must be abused.
Exactly.
There are ways to resolve some of these things. If your rights are being abused, you can have this conversation with those who are abusing your rights, and you would see it goes a long way. You could settle with, you can come to some form of an agreement with those. Yes.
You could walk away with some Benjamins.
Exactly.
Let's continue.
Yes. So other trending matters, if you look at, we talked about trademarks earlier on. There are trademarks such as sound trademarks. You find the USPTO has registered quite a number of these sound trademarks. There's 20th Century Fox Entertainment motion picture films. Their drums and trumpets are registered as trademarks.
You know, as you're talking, I'm remembering some of the sick tunes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. They have registered them. Their cat's meow. They have the AT&T long distance telecommunications, the Chime plus the AT&T, and then you have MGM Entertainment, the Roaring Lion, and all that. So these are...
So all those are IPs?
Yes.
And why not, really?
Yes, they are. And they have been registered, and we can also register our sound.
You know, I'm going back to music. I mean, if there's anyone listening from Gamro or from the Music Association, I'd like for them to give us a call when we get interactive. I think we need to sort of create a bit more. I know they've done a great job so far. I mean, Gamro was putting stuff together, reaching out, trying to get some of the musicians helped and all of that. But we need to continue some more.
Exactly.
Because people have intellectual property. My mind is going to a lot of things that, you know, are floating around, things that go viral.
Yes.
Things that become the order of the day in certain times of the year. All that is some form of IP, isn't it?
So long as somebody created it and the person expressed it in a medium, the person has rights
and we're
over that
reusing a lot of these things.
Yes.
I mean, I wanted to give some examples, but I'm being careful about it. But I mean,
Yes,
phrases,
yes.
intonations
Yes.
that make all of us laugh.
Yes.
Said by a particular somebody somewhere, and everyone is using it. Wow.
That's
okay.
If it's the person's rights and we are using it not within the exceptions, then we could be in trouble.
But there needs to be some more education about it.
So the rights holders themselves, they don't know the rights. They don't know they own certain rights to the works that they create.
Indeed. Indeed.
That's a challenge.
Let's continue
Yes.
before I get myself into trouble.
So if you have a sound mark, you should make sure that the mark qualifies for trademark registration. As in, it must be able to distinguish whatever your goods or your services are from those of other enterprises, because in some cases the courts will not allow certain marks to be registered. There's this case of Ada Metal Beverage Holdings and EU IPO, which rejected registration of a sound mark because the sound mark of the opening of a drink, that sound, yes, they rejected it because they thought it was not distinguishing the products from the goods from other enterprises.
But
So it was rejected.
every beverage that is carbonated when you open it.
Exactly. So that's why it failed.
Let
Because
me
it
go
didn't
back to
distinguish.
this my Anansi story. I asked you about this the last week.
Yeah.
Well, but I think that we want to take a quick break from our sponsors. When we come back, we get interactive. But when we come back, the first question I want to ask you is this conversation on why we haven't, as a country, been able to register Kweku Anansi as something that belongs to Ghana. And I understand on the back of it is because the conversation
it's
on the
folklore.
international scene was that we cannot lay claim as a country to the spider alone. I mean, let's leave it there, but let's take a quick message. When we come back, we get interactive.
Your favorite on-air business development program, Joy Business Masterclass, is in session, and you can interact with us on Facebook via the Joy 99.7 FM or Joy Business pages. If you tweet, the handle is at Joy 997 FM or at Joy Business GH. Don't forget to hashtag JB Masterclass. You can also call us on 0302 216541 or send your questions and contributions through to the WhatsApp number 0551 111997, and our facilitators will address your concerns. Attention everyone, class is in progress.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Welcome back. If you've just tuned in, this is Masterclass. We're interactive right now. Numbers to call 0302 216 541. That's 0302 216 541. You can also send us your comments on 055 997. If you're listening, you know anyone from Gumro, please tell them to tune into Joy Business Masterclass on Joy 99.7. We'll have a conversation with them regarding copyrights, IP, and all of that so that we can educate ourselves and become better people, well educated on the issues of IP. Numbers to call again 0302 216 541. You can send us your comments on 055 1111997. Just remind us that today's edition of Masterclass is brought to us by Goil. Goil, good energy, Goil. Yenara, Yedia. If you have a motor vehicle of any kind, then Goil has some great news for you. Good energy brings you Goil Super XP, the ideal choice for most vehicles. It is flowing wawa at many Goil stations in the country, so just go fuel up your vehicle and enjoy a smooth ride with all the benefits. Goil Super XP is quality and gives you the correct choice when buying regular fuel. Goil Super XP is fortified with a special additive that gives longevity to your engine and makes your engine perform to the max, using minimal fuel, and is also suitable for most vehicles. Goil, they say good energy, Goil. Yenara, Yedia. Phone lines are open. Numbers to call 0302 216 541 or send us your comments on 055 1111997. We're here in the studio with Sarah Norkor Anku, who's a global managing attorney, specialist in IP at Anku at Law. So we're having a conversation on IP. What's this thing with Anansi while we're waiting for the phone lines to ring? Do we have any? And this was about 3 years ago, in fairness to you. I had this conversation with some friends of mine at the Ghana Tourism Authority. Have we been able to register it yet?
I don't know what type of registration you are referring to, because in Ghana
Ownership
we have
of the Kweku Anansi
registration where?
I suppose that there was an international body, so we're supposed to make this a registration international so we could own it as our IP, as a country. If there's anyone from Ghana Tourism Authority who's listening, maybe there's been progress. Help us, educate us.
No, so the Kweku Anansi as we have it falls under folklore.
Folklore, okay.
And folklore is already protected.
Right.
It belongs to us. So probably you are talking about enforcement of those rights in probably other jurisdictions. If that is the case, then as I mentioned earlier on, the IP rights must be recognized within a particular jurisdiction.
Right.
It's statutory in nature, it's territorial in nature. So probably having recognized and protected Anansi in Ghana as a folklore may not be recognized in other jurisdictions, and
I think that's
why
what the conversation was.
and that is what. But for now, there is WIPO. There's a legislative instrument that has been adopted now by WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization,
Right.
that recognizes traditional knowledge and traditional cultural expressions. That's the other name for folklore. So with that, I don't know how far they have gone with the text. I think they have actually adopted it now. So I don't know how it's going to be implemented by the member states of the World Intellectual Property Organization. But if we have recognized ours as folklore, then it falls under the
folklore.
traditional cultural expressions that must be recognized by other jurisdictions as well. So
Right,
it's
right, I see
it's
what you
not as if we have we don't have any protection for our Anansi. We do. Anansi as a symbol of wisdom. Anansi, it's just folkloric, and we have protected it in Ghana. It's part of our Copyright Act of Ghana. Folklore is protected under the
Right.
the laws of Ghana.
And I think from what you just said, it's possible that based on the work that WIPO is doing, again, traditional cultural expressions, I think that's what you said,
yes.
are also covered.
Yes,
And,
they under that particular recently adopted legal document,
Okay.
legislative document that has been adopted by the countries. It should be
Okay.
it should be covered under it. But as to the procedure that has to be taken for each member state to recognize the other state's folklore or traditional cultural expression is something I'm yet to really
Right.
I
I think it's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
It's reassuring to hear because I think that it's part of a people's orientation. A people's orientation is key to their existence. I mean, I think we can have that conversation.
It's not a very straightforward subject matter because unlike the regular or the traditional intellectual property rights that we have, there are limits to protection. But we are saying that with folklore and traditional cultural expressions, there shouldn't be any timelines for the protection. It should be in perpetuity. So it makes it a bit tricky area. It's not too clear cut. So that's why I'm here to find out. I mentioned that I'm here to find out how this is going to act, how it's going to apply to us in real life.
Right,
Yes.
right.
I'm here to find out.
Phone lines are still open, and I'd really like to hear from you. Pick up that phone, give us a call. This is Masterclass. We're talking about intellectual property with Sarah, Norkor, Anku. Numbers to call 0302216541, or you can send us your comments on WhatsApp on 055-1111-997. I'd really like to read your messages as well, so that we can all contribute to this conversation and become better for it. So while we're waiting for those phone lines to ring and for those messages to come through, I think there are a couple of selected case studies which
Yes.
you probably want to take us through.
Yes, I will take you through that. I just wanted to mention briefly the issue of AI and copyright.
Yes, indeed. Please
It's
go
also
ahead.
a trending issue because the definition of intellectual property is the creation of a human mind. So where you find a computer or an AI coming up with something, who owns it? The question becomes who owns it. So
I have an
it's
answer to the
tricky.
question, which is a question. I mean, who wrote the prompt, the command prompt?
Yeah, these are the
Doesn't
arguments.
that make?
Yeah, those are the arguments that others have, raised. But in most jurisdictions,
So long as you
AI
do-
is not
it's not
from the
recognized.
human. Yes, and I'm waiting to see how Ghana is going to handle it. Our laws have not been updated to take cognizance of these AI and other technology developments that are going on. And then
Right.
also one very important thing where AI is concerned, the use of open source by creatives. When we believe that when you use the open source is free for use without recourse to the license that governs it. Remember, these works that you find in open source belong to certain people who have copyrights over them. They have elected to diffuse their work in a particular manner by probably asking you to use it, to modify it without, maybe for free or maybe for a token, but it still belongs to them and they have licenses to it. So if you are using it without recourse to the license, they may come back to you. There's this case of GitHub case. I think it's a US case on Copilot. And the creators of certain works that had found their way in Copilot came together to sue GitHub to say that the GitHub and I think Microsoft did not follow the license provisions in the use of those materials, and they won in that particular case. So
Wow.
yes, you have to be mindful of the license that governs even open source materials that you use.
On the open source conversation, I think we've got a couple more minutes, but could you just touch briefly on the I think you talked about softwares and about maybe just a quick couple of statements.
Yes, so with software, just like any, as I mentioned, software falls under copyright and in Ghana, but there could be some other IPRs that you can use to protect your...
What's an IPR?
Intellectual property rights.
Right, okay.
Yes, that you can use to protect your IP. But the copyright, you can use it for the software, the code, the patents you can use for the novel software related inventions. You can even use trade secrets to protect your algorithms, your source codes. And then, of course, you can use the trademarks to protect your names, the app names and the logos and other forms of brand identifiers. So
let me ask this question though, and I mean it may sound a little controversial, but because trust is eroding quickly in society, people hold on to the recipes,
yes,
the source codes,
yes,
the thing that brings everything alive. They hold on to it.
Exactly.
But you just educated us that copyrights and patents
Yes.
are jurisdictional.
Yes.
So once you protect them in the traditional jurisdiction area, you must go ahead outside to try and... You could go ahead to do it outside as well. My question, and I've always had this apprehension about, let's say, going to the cloud and putting stuff on the cloud, because the cloud sits in somebody else's country. It is without prejudice to a mistrust of the system, but if I gave my source code to an institution because I wanted to protect it from abuse, how do I know it won't end up as data in some other place, as we see happen across the world?
Yeah, so fortunately, software falls under copyright. Your source codes are protected under copyright, and copyright is automatic protection. Remember,
my point I'm making is I have to give them a copy of my source code to protect it in the first. They need to see it. They need to have it to protect it.
If they have it, then you have, if it is expressed in a medium, then you have protection for it. But to enforce that particular software, then you need to register it. In most jurisdictions, you need to register in order to enforce.
Okay,
Otherwise,
so the question I'm asking, I think I'm not asking clearly. They give you protection as a state from other users.
Exactly.
How do you get protection from the state, where there could be leakages and abuse?
So protection from the state, ideally you have to register it, so that when somebody uses it or there's a leakage or there's an abuse, piracy, it occurs all the time. When that happens, you now have this evidence, this certificate that shows that you own this particular software, and then you use that as a basis to take certain legal steps against the infringer.
Okay.
But if you don't have the owner, if you don't have that registration, then you now have to prove that indeed the software belongs to you.
But how about the situation when this one is not necessarily IP based, maybe based on experience? How about a situation where such a leakage, if and when it's occurred, would completely destroy your enterprise so that no amount of reparation would suffice? Let's say a Coca-Cola, for example.
That's trade secrets, yeah.
The trade secrets got leaked by some officer at the office where they're supposed to be protecting me. It got leaked from there. I can go to court and get reparations, but that means that whoever got it will mask it, and that's the end of my product.
That's exactly what it is.
Have you experienced that?
That is the risk with trade secrets.
Yeah.
If it is no longer a secret, then it loses its value. It has value because it is a secret.
Exactly.
And it has been kept a secret.
Exactly.
That's how.
Exactly. It's strange, isn't it? I mean, I think it's a heavy conversation to have.
Yes.
But it's an important one as well. Right, okay. Maybe a couple more case studies, and then we could sort of round up our conversation for today.
So I mentioned the Kirani Ayat case.
Mm-hmm.
It's an example of how important IPR awareness should be. I believe that because Kirani knew about his IPRs, he was able to take it on. He was able to take on the infringers in court, and I believe they have settled that matter between themselves. The other case I wanted to mention is a spiky case with a calf. And we shouldn't just assume that if you find something online, it belongs to the public domain, because the person can come back and sue you for that. So we have
by
to
the way,
learn
those who don't
lessons
know
from there.
Spiky, Kobe is a colleague of mine. He was here at Multimedia.
Yes.
And the case was about his IP, which was used by CAF,
Yes.
the Confederation of African Football. And it was a really interesting landmark
Exactly.
case. So Kobe, good afternoon to you if you're listening.
Exactly.
He's been here on the show a couple of times.
Yeah. So
I mean,
other
but I think
case,
everyone who heard it thought it wasn't possible, right?
yes.
From the beginning.
Yes. I believe he himself thought it was not possible, but we were able to get it done.
Indeed.
So
you're listening, you think your IP's been infringed, reach out. There's help. I've always said that, just shout. Once you put your hand up and shout, there's help available. You can't do everything by
Exactly.
yourself. And
exactly.
there are people who are willing to walk you through the path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then I think the other case that I have here is the Ephraim Do Churchill Gagbeto. Sorry about the name. And DVLA. The defense of educational use of somebody's content. This has to do with a song, I think it's called Aleke. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it well, but Aleke. And I think that DVLA used it for some adverts. And their argument was that it was for educational purposes. But it was found that, yes, it was for educational purposes, but it was also for adverts. So we have to watch how we use this content. Some are borderline
I think
cases.
this whole conversation is going to sort of create a big setup within the creative industry, especially where we reproduce content for
Exactly.
commercial purposes. Because if I can't use somebody's music without talking to them, if I can't use their artwork, if I can't use their sound bites, if I can't use that, then what? How do I design? I'm sure that people are listening and say, how do I design?
Creative works can be a motivation for you to come up with your own derivative work. That is also copyrightable. But it doesn't mean you have to copy the person. If you copy word for word, picture for picture, everything, then of course you have actually infringed on the person's work. But just seeing the work can motivate you to come up with something more creative. And that will not be an infringement.
But that determination is always done when the conversation is had at an IP firm or through the legal process.
Yes.
That assessment of whether or not an infringement has taken place is always had.
Yes,
at that level.
It is on a case-by-case basis, because you have to make sure that you don't extend the use of the work beyond a certain limit, with beyond which you end up infringing on the rights of the owner.
I mean, hopefully we're going to come back next week. I say hopefully because I know it's still on the works. But as a summary to this 3 or 4 week conversation, some of the keywords, just so people will walk away, with a certain basic level of understanding. Copyrights, patents, trademarks, where do you go to do what and what does what? I mean, just very briefly, if you will. Just a sort of
copyright
basic level summary.
Protects your literary works, artistic works, your music, your videos, and so on and so forth. You have automatic right the moment you create a work and you express it in a medium. You can go further to register at the Copyright Office. The Accra office is near the Nat Hall. And they will help you. They'll give you a certificate to cover the ownership. And then also, if you have solved a problem in a field of technology, you have an idea that solves a problem in a field of technology, probably in your business, in your manufacturing process, you have solved a particular technical problem. It may be something that can be protected under patents or utility models, and you can go to the Ghana Industrial Property Office, which falls under the Registrar General's Department, and they can help you to register that as well, the patents or the utility models. You may need legal assistance in drafting your specifications for the protection, and that can be gotten from the IP lawyers available. And then also your trademarks, your business identifier, those key elements of your brand that you believe that you need to secure so that nobody copies your identity. Then you need to take steps to register them under trademarks, because trademarks distinguish your services. They are marks that distinguishes your services or your goods from other enterprises in that particular field. And then you also have your industrial design, which usually also adds to your brand identity. It adds to the loyalty of your customers. And you wouldn't want your designs to be copied by your competitors. So you may want to register that as well. And that can also be done at the Registrar General's Department, the Ghana Industrial Property Office. So take steps to register these IPRs, and when you are commercializing them, make sure that you have proper contracts covering them. And then when your works are infringed upon, you have to take steps to actually secure your own rights and enforce your rights.
Right. Very briefly, if someone is looking for help to reach you and your firm after this show, where do they go? How do they find you?
So we are located at the Moving Pig Building, Emporium, 4th floor, SN Anku IP firm, and Anku at law.
Okay.
So you can always find us there. And then we also can reach us on our website, www.snankuipfirm.com or www.anku.anku@law and .com, and you can reach us there. I can also share our number.
Go ahead.
That's I could say, let me use my own personal number then. It's 0244380163.
Okay, if you could just take that again slowly for me.
So it's 0244380163.
Thank you so much. It's been an exciting 3 or 4 weeks of conversation with Sarah Norkor, Anku, Global Managing Attorney, talking to us about intellectual property as a key business enabler. Thank you for joining us for all these conversations. We'll see you same time next week.